Welcome. We're going to be looking at this component mounting and unmounting lab. So let's look at the README real quick, and then we'll jump into the code and we'll discuss the component lifecycle. So objectives. Describe what happens in the mounting phase of a React's component lifecycle. Describe what happens in the unmounting phase of a React component's lifecycle. Practice performing setup and teardown actions at the appropriate point in the React component lifecycle. Okay, so the React component lifecycle is definitely something that's important to know when dealing with React. Overview. You are a pancake chef in a fancy pancake restaurant. Time is ticking and customers are waiting, so you better get those pancakes out quick. Pancakes need to be cooked on either side and taken off the pan at the right moment before they burn for optimal deliciousness. Never knew they had things like this until I saw this lab with this, I guess, GIF. Go on and run the game. It doesn't quite work yet because some essential bits are missing and it's up to you to finish it off. Okay, so here's our game. Okay, so the timer's not counting. This isn't counting. And it's coming off raw, according to our game. So, okay, we need to fix that. Pancakes need to be cooked equally on both sides to be yummy. The current settings are that if a pancake is cooked for exactly 2 seconds on either side, it's considered to be cooked perfectly. If it is cooked for more than 2 seconds on either side, it will be burnt, and otherwise it will be raw. You can change these settings in the pancake component. Okay. This will be something to look at. Shop needs an opening time. First, you want to record the time your shop was opened. Open game. So we have our index. It has the game component and some CSS, and it renders the game component. So that's all that we need to know about that. Nothing complex going on here. Okay, our game. Open the game component and notice a set current time method already exists. Okay, so we have a set current time method here that sets the time to the date time of right now. And time is undefined in our initial state. Okay, looking good. But it's not yet called. Okay, so we're not calling this anywhere as of yet. Okay, now create a component will mount method in the game component, which will call the set current time method, I guess function, when the component is first created. If you've done that correctly, you should see the current time at the top of the page. Okay, so let's do that. All right, let's finish reading, and then we'll go back and do these things one by one. So pancake needs a timer. Now it's time to implement the actual pancake cooking part of the game. Firstly, we need a timer on each pancake so we could record how long it's been cooking. Look in pancake, the pancake component. Okay, let's look at our pancake component. And see the, what are we looking at? See, the start interval method is already there. Start interval is here. Okay, so that starts it. All you need to do is add a lifecycle method in pancake at component did mount. That's the point at which the pancake component gets added to the page, which will start the counter. So when we add the component to the page, component did mount will fire. Now we want to start the interval once the component's added. Okay. Tidy up the timer. Now that we've set up a timer, we need to make sure we also remove it as soon as it's not needed anymore. It is important to always clean up such long-running processes as soon as they are no longer needed. You wouldn't leave your dirty dishes on the table after you've finished eating. Similarly, you shouldn't be leaving your intervals ticking after the component using them has been dismounted. As you can see, a cleanup interval function is all set up for you. So cleanup interval. So it'll be good to not let this keep running as after we've gotten rid of the component. So after we finish, so the component's added, we want to start the timer. And when we click take me off, we want the timer to stop. We don't want it to continue running because those will start adding up as this game continues on. And now we'll have all these timers running if we're not getting rid of them. So that's where we need to tidy up the timer. So as you can see, a cleanup interval function is all set up for you. So all you have left to do is call it just before the component gets unmounted from the page. That will be in the component will unmount method. So that's it. You finished off the game. Happy pancake making. So a place that I still go all the time is this exact link. Or where's the component lifecycle? Right here. I guess this link would be where I still spend a lot of time, because knowing where you can change state is something that, and how these fire, will forever be useful. These methods are called when a component is being re-rendered. So knowing that, okay, something changes in the component, if state changes and something in your component changes and a re-render is triggered, all these get called. This is called when a component is being removed from the DOM, component will unmount. We have this component did catch as React 16. And then we go and look through all of these. Component will mount is invoked just before mounting occurs. It is called before render. Therefore, calling set state synchronously in this method will not trigger an extra rendering. Generally, we recommend using the constructor instead. So we see it'll tell us where we should do these things. So calling set state, this is really the things that I was always looking at. Where should I call set state? And this method will trigger an extra rendering, but it will happen before the browser updates the screen. So knowing how this lifecycle works is very important. Calling this set state generally doesn't trigger. Component will receive props. Should component update? Component will update. So let's look. We have component did mount and component will mount is first. So let's look at that one. Component should, will, did, will mount. It's invoked just before mounting occurs. It is called before render. So that means if we put it into our component, it's going to do that before we actually see the component show up on the page. Granted, that's super quick. So we're not really going to notice it visually. And it's going to seem like it happens at the exact same time. Therefore, calling set state synchronously will not trigger an extra rendering. Avoid introducing any side effects or subscriptions in this method. For those use cases, use component did mount instead. This is the only lifecycle hook called on server rendering. Okay. First things first, game. Create a component will mount, which will set the current time. Let's go ahead and do that. Yep. Component will mount. There's our browser. Create a component will mount method in game, which we'll call the set current time function. So to reference that function, we need our this, and then our set current time. And we want to fire that function. And put a semicolon on there for good measure. And that should be all that we need to do for this function. So when the component is, when the game is loaded, we're going to set a current time. And that's what this is right here. So actually, no, I didn't want to zoom in. We can look at DevTools too. If they'll connect. What do you mean by, is this the one that's going to be deprecated? Component will mount, you mean? Like the actual lifecycle function?
Yeah, I remember, like, weren't they saying something about or it's being considered because they kind of recommend not using it all the time?
Let's see.
I thought they said something in the lesson plan before this lab, but I could be wrong.
Let's see. If there's anything out there. Mounting up to unmounting. First method that gets executed in this phase, component will mount, and its usage is mostly same as of constructor. Set up initial state and default props. Warning, component will mount and other component will methods are deprecated. Use component did mount or constructor instead of this one. So it looks like it is, although it's 16.2. The React docs don't say anything about it for the current version. But that might be true. It might be a direction that they're going. If you plan to work in React or stay up with React, I highly recommend, just a general tip, to stay up with their blog. It doesn't come out that often, but they put out really good things. So September 26th, November 28th, that's 2 months. December, that's a month. December, I guess that's the same month. But after that, March. So that was like 4 months. So all the important things are in here. I honestly haven't been keeping up with it, but I should be. But it might be in there somewhere. Deprecation. Okay. .3 alpha. Okay. Context API is what everybody was talking about because Dan Abramov just talked about it at like React Conf Iceland or something. Okay, so yeah, it looks like RFC to make it into the alpha release concerns deprecation of some lifecycle methods and introduction of 4 new ones. Article on lifecycle methods. Okay. That will be in time considered deprecation. Deprecated will be will mount, will update, will receive props. So yeah, you're right.
So we should just basically use a constructor instead. I mean, not for the purposes of this lab, obviously, but.
Yeah. It does say there will be no breaking changes in React 16.3 or anywhere in the 16.x release cycle. So that means, and it says deprecation notices will start popping up in 16.4, but they're not going to be removed until 17.0. So I would assume that's at least a year off. So there's a long time between now and then. And considering React 17 will have breaking changes, these will be around for a long time. I'm sure of it. Because it's just too much to refactor. Like large apps that do have them right now will take too much time to refactor. So people just will probably stick on 16 for years, for a while, until they decide to refactor it. But yeah, good catch. That's probably also why it's still in the curriculum, because it is still considered a practice that's just fine. This is updating as we go. Okay, so it's the initial time. And if we take that out, we shouldn't get our initial time. Yeah, it's just blank. Cool. I need to subscribe to his blog. Who is this? Is this Dan? No, this is a different person. Okay. Pancake needs a timer. Now it's time to implement the actual pancake cooking part of the party. So here we're using component did mount. So we need to call the start interval function in component did mount in Pancake. So we have two to-dos here. So let's go ahead and just use this like that. Component did mount. And this we need to start the interval. And just like in the game, since the function's already built for us, that's all that we need to do. So after the component successfully mounts, the interval will start. There we go. We see it counting. It's burnt. And it's raw. 2, 2. We put a whole bunch of these out here. And, they're all burnt. But now all those timers are still going in the background, which we don't want. We want to make sure that our code is taking care of itself and it's cleaning up after itself so that we don't leave stuff like this hanging out there and just running. It's wasting our resources, although, you know, a timer, by all intents and purposes, isn't consuming many resources, but it's good practice to be in to make sure that we clean up after we unmount components like this. So we need to do our component will unmount here, which is going to clear that interval. And cleanup interval, pretty sure it is. Yes. And so that start interval takes the interval, and starts it, calls this update counter, setting the state, cleanup interval, calls clear interval, cleanup, start, update, with the interval, there's clear interval. Flips the set state. And that gets rid of it. Okay, let's look at it. Too many React logos. 1, 2, 1, 2, and it comes off. It's cooked perfectly. And that gets rid of our timer. So that we're being a good citizen of the browser resources and what's going on. Making sure we don't leave things out there running. Because especially in a React app, you might have this large, complex application, and it's designed as a single page application. So those things could hang out there for a very long time. People might do everything without ever, quote unquote, leaving that page, even if, we have a router set up and stuff where, the URLs are changing and you can go forward and backwards. It might actually still just be that one page that they're on. We're making it look a certain way so that people feel like they're doing traditional, browser routing and stuff. But they're actually not. It's all in JavaScript. And they're, that stuff starts to build up over time if it's hanging out there and not cleaned up afterwards. Any questions about these lifecycle methods? Like I said, this section of documentation is a place to go and dive deep into. I guess read this blog. I'm going to bookmark it.
How will we know? I guess it'll become clear when we're working kind of on our React project, but kind of I feel confused as to when to use these and when not to, you know what I mean? Or what to use them for even.
Yeah, okay. So I think as you build components and need data, you'll start seeing where to do these things, because you're going to want your component to do things. And, sometimes that'll be making an API call. Sometimes that'll be, updating something, or component will unmount is a little bit more straightforward. If you have something running, you want to make sure you get rid of it.
Sure.
Clean up after yourself. So
a lot of these would be used to handle like fetch requests to your back.
Yeah. A lot of them are for things that, because the state, you're typically using state, like a this.state.something or this.props.something if you want to have that data. So that's going to, when the state changes, it'll automatically re-render and do that for you. But if there's something else that's running that you need to fire, some function you need to fire, whether it's typically where I've seen it used the most is with fetch requests or fetch requests for the most part when you're interacting with other things, because you might want to make that call before the component mounts. I guess that's going away, but the thought process of, hey, shoot this call out before the component even gets set up so that it theoretically takes less time visually, because that call goes out before you even start rendering. And then when it comes back, it's there. Granted, when you add the data to the state, it's going to trigger a re-render anyway, but it should perceivably shorten the time if it takes a little bit.
Or stuff like when you're calling out, like when you're grabbing stuff off some other person's API or some other site's API, like stuff like that, right?
Yeah, those are typically going to be in those lifecycle methods because you want them to happen every time, or not every time. So that's where mounting, updating, and unmounting happen. So if there's something that you need to happen every time a re-render occurs, because you know that the re-render is going to occur only when specific things happen, then you might want to check something or to send off some data or things like that, or get new data. It's really a use case thing. For the project, it's probably just going to be fetching data.
Okay. Yeah, it's the feeling I'm getting. It's like basically grabbing that JSON, basically.
Yeah, because everything else is going to be either app level state or component level state, and that'll be doing most of the other stuff for you.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's been a little bit since I've gone through all the lessons, but I think I remember that, the curriculum says most of these you don't ever really touch. They're there for those kind of edge cases when you really need them, but like component will receive props isn't something that's commonly used.
Yeah, they say to use them sparingly, basically.
Yeah. Most things can be handled just by depending on re-renders that are triggered with the state changing.
Mm-hmm. Like update state, basically.
Yeah, like update state is going to change the state and it's going to trigger a re-render. So,
cool.
That's taking care of that for the most part. It's really just, I mean, this was a good example, starting a timer type of thing, setting a date when, that one time when the app loads, you want to set something up. It could be useful. Some sites use it, so, they'll set up a small kind of, if they don't do a static HTML page, maybe the home page is a small kind of React app. And on that page, there's, something, after component did mount, or I guess, yeah, because you want it after the component mounts, you would call for, to get all the rest of the JavaScript type of thing. So that first page loads really, really quick because it only has a little bit going on. And then, by the time somebody gets to log in or sign up or whatever, everything else has downloaded, and it makes the app appear a lot faster because you've pulled down the rest of the stuff after the first page loaded.
Interesting. So you can almost stagger like what JavaScript you're loading and which backend data you're loading, kind of stagger it to make the user experience faster.
Yeah. So I know a lot of sites that are large do that type of thing. Webpack has I haven't dove deep into it, but I know it has some intelligent asset loading things where, it only loads certain amounts at a time based on where you are in the app. And, eventually it all gets cached and it only gets updated when new stuff is available, and it's quick. But the idea of a single page application is you get all the stuff into the browser and then it's super fast because it's not fetching anything except data from, the web or the API or whatever that it needs. But all of the HTML, CSS, and JS is in the browser's memory. So it's on the local computer. You're not getting that stuff with every call to the server. All you're getting is that, those strings of JSON.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And then even then, once we throw, Redux in the mix, you can get all that JSON, and then unless you're changing it, you're doing post calls, a lot of it's there for you anyway. And now you have it's all sitting there and usable. So you're pulling the data from your app level state once you've populated that from the APIs you're using. That's kind of the whole idea of the single page application for the user experience. Now that, computers have a bunch of RAM compared to what they used to, and internet speeds, for the most part, at least in this country, are pretty quick around the way.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions?
Can you throw that link to that blog in the chat?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, let me bookmark it too in here. React 16. I found I have a lot of these Medium bookmarks, so being able to filter them. You can't search them, which makes it hard to find these things later. Yeah, I wish there was like a centralized source of some of that stuff. I found the actual docs, or the actual blog, is really good for released stuff. So like 15.62, 16.0, 16.2, and stuff like that. I guess not so much about the what's coming up type of stuff. Although this sneak peek JSConf is when he was talking about the context API that I've seen a lot of people talking about is the quote unquote death of Redux, because I don't know. I haven't looked into context yet, but apparently it's available in React now. It's just an implementation that they're going to make available is going to be different, where you can wrap your whole app in a context, and the context can, there's going to be a provider and basically a consumer. So that's basically your provider that Redux gives you, and the connect. And then you can have that context level state. And if you wrap your entire app in it, then you have app level state through the context API, which is built into React, which sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. I haven't read about it nearly enough to really talk about it, though. But that's just what I've seen going on. So it sounds like there will be some cool stuff coming down the pipe. Yeah, read this. I'll read that tonight.